to the Faith Therapy Podcast, and I'm your host, Marilynshaw. I'm having intimate conversations with therapists, faith leaders, and wellness influencers with one goal in mind: to bridge the gap between faith and mental wellness. As a best-selling author and soon-to-be therapist, I'm passionate about providing practical tools to renew your mind, restore your faith, and redefine your life. The information shared in today's episode is not intended to be a substitute for a relationship with a licensed counselor. If you need one, visit myfaiththerapy.com. That's myfaitherapy.com. All right, so for today's episode, I genuinely feel like we're going to need our feelings wheel, because we are diving into how our emotions impact our life. And I talk about this in today's episode with our special guest, Saylor. She was actually our VIP experience sponsor and speaker for the Blue Mental Wellness Brunch that we kicked off this month for mental health awareness. And Rachel really helped the ladies to uncover how their life can be in this abundance, this bloom, even when there's weeds. So in this episode you're about to listen to, we kind of do a recap, but then I kind of consider it like the part two, because we talked about, for us ladies, we know that our feelings, sometimes we have this, this stereotype of we're always in our feelings. We're always, or you're on the opposite end of the spectrum where it's like you don't have time to process because you're so busy. There's so many responsibilities, or it's a sign of weakness. And I can only imagine, if I go there, what would actually happen, So in this episode, we talk about it. We really spend time really just dissecting and understanding how our emotions show up in our life. And I can't wait for you guys to hear our conversation. Let's take a listen. Thank you so much, Rachel, for being on the podcast today. How are you?
Of course, I'm doing so well. I'm so happy to be here. Anytime I can be in this vibe with you and see what's going to come from it is always a good day. So thank you for letting me be here.
Yeah, I'm excited for us to just kind of, I feel like it's a recap of the Blue Mental Wellness Brunch. Those of you that didn't make it, hey, it is what it is. But
it
Rachel,
was so good. You missed it.
I know. You really just open the door to set the stage for the day, to dive into what so many of us don't really pay attention to, which is the weeds in our life. And we'll get into all of that, but Let me stick to my regular when it comes to this podcast. I'm asking every guest, when did faith and mental health come together for you?
So about 6 years ago, as I imagine you get this answer kind of a lot, I had a major life event happen. I was not in the best place, and I had a friend suggest therapy. And quite honestly, I had always thought the idea of therapy was cool, but it that was for just really messed up people or something, right? It was I'm still cool. But in that time, I was like, yeah, maybe I qualify, right, in that category. But what I learned by going to therapy and starting that is that it brought me back to myself. I was just kind of living, right? And I was going day to day, and I was doing all the right things and showing up and becoming successful and all of this. But so it came, both my faith and the therapy, right? It led to each other, because I had gotten so far away from who I truly was and what I believed. So that was a long answer to say about 6 years ago, but I've been constantly trying to grow and expand and be even more connected since then.
Yeah, and it was not a long answer at all. For so many of us, right, we go through these experiences where it's like, okay, I need something more, something different in my life. I can't really put my finger on what it is. And that's the beauty of going to therapy, is that you have this
Hmm.
hour with a professional that can help you to sort through and explore and redefine your life in a way
Right.
where it's that much more meaningful, right?
Right. Right. And it wasn't, I talk about this a lot just with my family or with my friends. Therapy is not to fix you.
Right.
That ain't it, right? If it was, that'd be a lot cooler. I probably still wouldn't be 6 years in, I would have been fixed by now. But no, it's about giving you a different perspective and letting you, yeah, just like reflect on what it is, right? It's not just do ABC and now you'll be better. It's a constant learning.
Yeah, it is a constant learning. I
Mhm.
like the way that you described it, because for some people, they're just kind of like, oh, what can somebody tell me that I don't already
Mhm.
know? It's not that deep or that
Yep.
serious. I really don't need this. But I mean, as you probably can attest to it, is that it's a time where if you're busy, right? You have so many things that's going on in your life, responsibilities. I mean, you're a business owner, you're a
Mhm.
wife, you're an incredible friend to so many people. You are a mortgage lender. When people are making, like, real
Right.
decisions and life-changing investments, you're right there with them. So because of all of
Right.
those hats, the responsibilities of that, you're kind of like, okay, where am I in all of it? And
Yeah.
therapy's that time,
Yeah.
for you to be able to do it. So, yeah.
And if you're anything like me, which I think a lot of women are, I take that on, right? Because if someone is stressed out and they don't think that they're going to get into a home, which has been shown to us as this American dream, and if you don't do this, somehow you're wrong or whatever. So I take that on and I go like, well, how do I fix it? And how do I get them approved? And how do I do this? And then if my husband and I work together, right? So we're in business together, so then it's like if he's got something crazy going on, I feel like I need to jump in and do that. So yeah, it's I still every day work on, I'm not saying separating myself from it in a sense that I'm disconnected, but that you therapy and prayer and all these things have helped me create this space that like nobody can get into, right? The
Right.
chaos can't
Yeah.
get into because I've been able to formulate that. Yeah. And being in person twice a month for 1 hour at a clip just to block everything out is, I don't, there's no doubt that the success or the things that I am accomplishing in my life, that I could have done it without that support.
Absolutely. And you said something there
Yeah.
about, your role as a leader in your industry, and that you're a leader because you genuinely care about the
Right.
families that you're serving, for them to accomplish their goals. And every goal comes with its nuances, right? There's high stressors, and,
Yeah.
and not just the family, but then you're dealing with the agents and all the other things. And then they're being vulnerable with you, with their finances.
Right.
It's just this whole
Right.
thing. It's
It's a
this
whole
whole
thing.
thing. Yeah. So
Yes.
to
Yeah.
have that time for you, it's so essential as a leader. And what I love so much is this, that Rachel's you're in this space where you've done the things, right? But now you're like taking all of these nuggets of what you've learned as a leader in your industry and pouring back into others to amplify what they're doing. You're
Yeah.
speaking and sharing. And listen, you guys, on Saturday at the brunch, Rachel was our VIP speaker, and I wish there was more time for you just to really unpack what you provided for us in that short amount of time, about what it really means to bloom in your life when there's full of weeds. The
Hmm.
weeds of all the
Yeah.
things, like we talk about the
Yeah.
weeds of stress and, all of that. So I don't want to say give everything that you gave then, but like kind of
No.
recap, what that process was like for you to share that wisdom to the ladies.
I mean, it was really cool, right? So first, thank you. I'm so grateful that we have this connection in our life, and I just love my circle and the way, you never know who you're going to meet.
Yeah.
But it was really cool to be able to share that, because I'll say first, it was not at all the direction I was going to go, right? So, I give you so much credit of just like, hey, can you pull a little more? Can you open up your faith a little more? But the whole thing is, we cultivate this life for ourselves, right? And we want to make it so perfect and pretty, much like your garden or a landscape, right? And we can spend all the time picking our blooms. So picking what we want people to see, how we want our life to appear. I'm the successful mortgage lender, and I'm a wife, and I'm a stepmom, and I'm a leader, and da da da. But we have these weeds in our life that come up as coping mechanisms, that come up as things that get in the way of this beautiful life that we want. And what I learned, because as this started coming, I am a total nerd, and I start looking up definitions and articles about weeds and farmers almanac and all this stuff. Anyway, what I learned that was so crazy is that weeds in nature are there. They grow where there's room, and they grow to protect vulnerable soil, which was just wild, because that's what all these little things in our life, we can be hard on ourselves, or we can be like, oh, I shouldn't be doing this, or I need to be doing better, or whatever. But these things that are coming up in your life, they're protecting something. So how do we figure out what that something is, and not just rip out these bad habits and then replace them with the idea that, oh, I should be perfect, or I should not do this? How do we then replace it when, hey, you know what, when I'm feeling really overwhelmed, instead of grabbing a glass of wine, I am going to take a walk. Or I'm going to, for me, I've started instead reading kind of self-care books. I love to read. I cannot sit down and read a whole self-care book. I don't know. I love it, but I can do it in chunks, right? So the idea is, to give yourself grace. You're planting a beautiful life. Things are going to come up, not always because they're bad, but because they're protecting something.
And that protective factor, oh man, it's I call it the mask, the areas
Right?
that we just kind of, tuck away so that you can still move forward. And the way that you described, and really help women to process weeds and to understand, for some of us, we can look at weeds, oh, these are bad, let me just get rid of this, get rid of that, change this, change that, and that can relate to our life. Let me pick up this new habit, or get rid of this and try this new diet, and blah, 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 blah. We do that quickly as women. We're inundated with it all the time, right?
Inundated. Yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, you helped us to really dive in and say, well, yeah, it's there, but it's there because it's really protecting fill in the blank. What is
And then
there?
it's right. And then can you just pull that weed, right? Instead of, okay, I woke up today and I don't feel good. And so I'm not going to scroll on my phone. I'm only going to eat healthy. I'm going to run 15 miles a day. I'm going to do this for my kids. I'm going to organize my house. You don't have to do that's. So hard for us as women. We always want to be doing something. Whew. Right? Can we do one thing and just start there, instead of, I've got to totally rehaul my life?
Yeah.
Nah, this is not a linear process. Right? This is not just, okay, now I've fixed it. So yeah, can we just start with one? Can we pick one? So
yeah, picking one instead of feeling like, let's get this master plan of to-dos and get all things done in the next hour. That's just not realistic. It sounds stressful, actually. It sounds very
stressful.
Like that's talk about anxiety on 10 when you're thinking about here I'm feeling, and then let me pull all the things, all of that. And what I loved about what you shared in your presentation is how the changes of life that create this opportunity for
Mm-hmm.
weeds to show up unassuming.
Right.
So talk to us about that.
So that for me, okay, so before I say that, I will say this. I heard this thing on a podcast. It was a Mel Robbins podcast, this chick called the Budgetnista. She was talking about money and all this stuff. But a part of what she said stuck with me so much. And she said that shame is the lowest vibration, right?
Mm,
And shame loves to keep you alone. And
mm,
so I personally, just in my life, with all the things, with the counseling and the coaching and the blah, 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 I have been feeling like there's something within me, like there's this stirring. I just don't feel satisfied. I'm beating myself up more than I normally do. My self-confidence, just feeling shot. And so I finally just like said it to somebody. I think it was my team member, Nancy, who I just, it's like my second mom. And she was like, I've been feeling like that too. And then
wow.
at the Bloom brunch, I wasn't even going to say it, right? But as you say, open, right? It was like when we talk about changing seasons, I feel like this is a season of change for a lot of people. And so, whatever it is, even if we can't put our finger on it, to acknowledge it and to open up about it and just to say, hey, I don't really know what's going on, but I have this stirring in my spirit. And to hear so many, and you could feel it in the room
Oh,
that day, where it was
yes.
like everybody in there was like, yeah, like you could just feel the wave of energy. So whatever season that you're in your life, and I don't think it has to always come through these major, oh, I'm having a job change, or oh, I'm getting married, or oh, I'm having a baby. Those don't necessarily have to be our seasons. If we stay open and receptive and like, hey, what is my intention today? What is my purpose today? I think we may see that the seasons shift more often than we think they should, right?
Mm,
So in these seasons of change, back to nerd Rachel gardening weeds, right? That was one of the number one things that you have to fertilize, especially during
mm,
those season changes, to prevent the weeds. So just when you're feeling overwhelmed or this stirring, or you don't exactly know what it is, let yourself take that extra time for the morning meditation or for the walk or whatever the one thing you choose. Give yourself that, especially instead of the classic, I'll just push it down and it'll go away.
yeah. Yeah. That's so powerful, Rachel, because change, if we're not intentional about it happening, most of the time we can feel it. We can
Mm-hmm.
feel it, but we don't necessarily can articulate what exactly it is. And I love how at the brunch that, defining moment tied right into the presentation that I gave about we focus so much in mental health around the thoughts, but a lot of it has to do with your emotional well-being and how
Right.
it's interconnected to your thoughts. But for a lot of women, we don't feel safe enough, or for some, if you're so busy you feel like I don't have the time to just even cry. Like I had women
Mm-hmm.
afterwards and said I just needed a good cry and I got it
Yep.
today. I just
Yep.
really needed to say that I'm tired. I have all these responsibilities, and us being in that room and having that opportunity to hear someone else. A lot of women didn't even know each other. Some did,
Mm-hmm.
some didn't. But to hear another woman say, I know exactly what you're talking about, just like the interaction that you had with Nancy. Like, I'm
Mm-hmm.
feeling this way. She's like, me too. And
Right.
it's like this release that comes to where you feel like I don't have this shame because I am feeling this way. And I think that was so beautiful that you were able to help women recognize it in the moment by just raising your hand and being vulnerable. No, you're not necessarily putting all your dirty laundry out there.
Right. But we
Yeah.
don't have to, right? If
No.
you put your dirty laundry out in therapy, right?
Exactly.
That's where you do that. But to say, because for me, I struggle to, so I'm a very proud stepmom, right? We are full on 50-50, live 10 minutes from their mom. Anyway, we're just like the picture of co-parenting in 2024. But it's hard for me as a stepmom, and when you have kids, you have this husband. For me, I try to look like I always have it all together, and to just be vulnerable or cry like in front of your husband or in front of your kids, they want to fix it, right? Well, what's wrong? What's going on? When sometimes, which is what I love so much about the faith therapy community and the Bloom event, is that as women, I think we understand that I just need to cry. I just need to cry, and I'll need you to fix it. I don't know, but like I just need to let the guard down and not be this superwoman for just a little bit. I'll put my cape back on. I'm hanging it up for good. But it's hard to just be vulnerable when you feel like you need it, because you have other eyes on you, and you have people, that you got to say, it's okay, I'm not having a full breakdown, just a mini, just a mini
Right.
one,
Right, right. When you were saying that, I was thinking about my last therapy session where it was like a good 70% full on cry. Like I couldn't even articulate what I was, the words, but it was just that emotional release that I needed, and to
Right.
be in the company of my therapist to where she literally let me cry, and she just prayed, and as she prayed, I'm just like crying even more. But
I
afterwards
love
I
that.
felt so like, oh, finally, it was just like that good finally. And
Mm-hmm. I
yeah.
think too, maybe like sometimes it feels scary to let yourself go there, right? Like I need
Yeah.
to cry, I need to sob for an hour. That may sound a little bit like, am I going to be okay after this? But you tell it, right? Like how did you feel
Yes.
after that? Did you feel more restored?
Amazing.
Like, right.
It
So
was
we don't have to
almost
be scared.
right. It's almost like this peaceful experience of like I'm not on this hamster wheel. I'm not in this performative aspect. I love all the things that I do. I love
Mhm.
curating through faith therapy. I love learning about mental health. I love all of those things, right? And I know that it's something very unique to my life, but I'm also aware of the fact that I am still just Marilyn Shaw. I'm
Yeah.
learning about grief. I'm at 35. There's so
Mhm.
many other nuances that I'm discovering about myself that sometimes I'm excited about it, and
Mhm.
sometimes I lament what was. But it's
Yep.
like this, ebb and flow. And because there's this ebb and flow, our our bodies, they're so uniquely designed to where there is this emotional experience that we have that
Mhm.
we need to release it, you know
Right.
we have to
Right.
release it.
We have to. And for me, what I find is, so I have gotten very big on my morning routine. Um, but what happens is that when I start feeling overwhelmed, I'll tell myself, instead of getting out of bed, you can just lay here for 45 more minutes, right? And then your body, it needs rest. But what I'm learning through my last therapy session, he was like, Rachel, that's your self sabotage coming back up, right? I'm always looking for self sabotage in these big actions, but it's like and I'm not saying our bodies need rest, yada
Yeah,
yada, but
yeah.
what when it's so easy to push our self-care to the side, especially when we need it the most.
Yes.
What I need is that hour of the day to myself, because work has been really hectic and we got some stuff going on with the kids, and the kids are about to be out of school. What are we going to do with them all summer? Like that's when I need that quiet. But I go like, just give yourself a break.
Yeah.
And that's where our voices come in and push. So anyway, just to advocate for yourself, and again, give yourself that grace. But it's no matter what or how far along this journey we're on, those thoughts are so easy to come up and push aside the good plants or blooms or these kind of things
Yeah.
that we're putting in. So
Yes. Yeah. It's almost like you plant something, but then you prematurely pull it out because like, I don't like that
right.
color anymore. I'm
Right.
feeling that plant like I did when I first got it. Let me just pull you out.
It's fine.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Drop something else in there
totally.
instead, but
Totally.
it's essential to our well-being to create that wellness routine to where we
Mm-hmm.
can, because life is so ebb and flow and changes happen for us, that time of self-care can give you a moment to not only reflect but recognize, okay, things are changing for me. I do need said what thing. That was one thing we really dived into on Saturday about the unmet needs and how they're
Yes.
outsourced to areas that we don't even recognize. And for some women, they were like, I'm not sure what my needs are. And then as we
Right?
talked more and others started to share, like, oh, yeah, I do need that. I need that. And
Yep.
we only identified one. I'm sure there's plenty of unmet needs that we all
Right.
experience. What were some of the
Yeah.
things that you recognize that are like non-negotiable needs for you?
I mean, I have to put and like, yeah, just hearing you say that, I was just going back to just your incredible words. And I think it's so worth noting that you can tell as a audience member, even if I didn't know you, you're just so in tune, and you're just so open to kind of what the message needs to be. So just thank you, if I
Thank you.
haven't already said that, for just bringing this message out here and for putting this good out here. Um, for me, my self love is one of those. Again, I feel like I'm in a good place, and then I let these little things come up. So for an unmet need, and again, a lot of the things that I say or I talk about came from other women in my life, other coaches or friends or whatever. And another dear friend, Denise, her whole thing is waking up in the morning. What do I need today? And how can I give it to myself?
Mm,
And like with one of my unmet needs is I may feel like, oh, I need to feel more nurtured. I want to feel safe, or I just want to feel like I don't have all these things going on, or I don't have to be, have it all together. But when I look at self love, I'm like, okay, how can I give that feeling to myself
mm,
today? How can I take the pressure off of, hey, all these people in my life, you should know that I need to feel nurtured today. So what are you going to do about it?
mm,
Let's try and cultivate that for ourselves, and
mm-hmm.
acknowledge that for ourselves. And then if we get set off by something, instead of we've already woken up feeling like we're not feeling nurtured enough, and everyone around us should know that. So when they say something, when the kids are dismissive, or you get a rude email or whatever, then you're like, oh, they're coming at me. They don't know.
No
They
clue.
don't know.
No
They have
clue.
no idea.
No
They're living
clue.
in their own,
Yes.
set of needs that people aren't fulfilling, right?
Yes.
So I think taking that and just saying, okay, what do I need? What do I want to feel today?
Mm-hmm.
And how can I give it to myself? And then
Yes.
expanding from there, then how can I tell my partner and just say, hey, I'm feeling a little vulnerable today, just so you know.
Yeah.
Then you can fuss at them when they're snappy with you, right?
Yeah.
Because they know. But But yeah, so for unmet needs, I have to, we think we go to an event and we learn about mental health and faith, right? But we've got to continuously pour into ourselves and remind ourselves, because it's not a one and done thing.
No, it's this continuous process. It's just like if you were to plant something in the ground and you like, oh, this looks great. But if you don't go back and cultivate it with the proper sunlight, the proper water, or moving it to a bigger pot that it needs to be, like all
Mhm.
of it to nourish it, to cultivate its growth, then it's not going to flourish. When you were talking about self love, I was reminded of the Radical Transformation Wise Council group was talking about, how to, people want to make changes, and transformation was the top of the year. But then we leaned all the way into what is your love language to yourself. And we know the love language of how we want to
Mhm.
feel from others, quality
Right,
time, words of affirmation, physical touch, all of the things. But what is it to yourself? How do you love on you the best? And it could change. It
Mhm.
can change. I'm learning right now, my love language to myself is physical touch. And that
Okay.
was not at the top
Yeah.
of my list the last
Right.
season. Last season, it was acts of service. Like, show me that
Right.
you love me by what you do. Where I still value it to a degree,
Right.
but right now it is that physical touch. And I think it's just because I'm in this window of full transparency here. April is my mom's birthday. Then right after that, it's, our anniversary. And this year, our anniversary falls on Mother's Day. So it's like that whole
Mm.
window of I have to be aware of, okay,
Yeah.
this is my season and this moment, and I'm used to, giving my mom a card or sending her to go get her feet done or coming in the
Yeah.
house with a big bouquet of roses, all of those things, yellow roses, by the way, all of the
Okay.
things to show that, right? So now that
Right.
that isn't here and present for me, I have to be intentional about, okay, how do I feel? All right, what
Right.
do I need? And how can I still honor that love and relationship even though my mom's physically isn't here? I went and
Right.
bought flowers, favorite color, got her favorite cake, ate it, shed some tears, journaled,
Yeah.
but it still met that need. It met the need that I needed in that moment. And for other women, it's so important for us to uncover, right? Pull up that
Mm-hmm.
dirt, figure
Mm-hmm.
out what is missing in the soil of our hearts that need to be help us to flourish. And it's okay if it means, what, you dig it up and you kind of step back a bit, or you pull one weed out and you fill in the need for what you need in that moment. We all need it as women, right? We all need it.
We all need it. And I think grief itself, you can never really tell when it's going to hit you, right? Grief will just come up. But the fact that you've cultivated and thought ahead of it versus, okay, these days are coming up and I'm really, because we can feel it's right to feel it. But
Oh
I
yeah.
think so many times we just go, this is coming up and I'm just going to deal with it and I'm just going to get through it and I'll get through that day. And it's my anniversary, so I got to be with my husband anyway. And I don't want him to feel any type of way. But like, you're like, hold on, let me think about this and let me honor the grief, right? Like, I hate grief. Nobody likes grief,
No.
but it's, oh
It seems like an
my
inconvenience all
grief.
the time.
It's I'll be laying in bed and then just all of a sudden I start thinking about my dad and I'm just crying. It's just like, it's
It
just
is what it
whatever,
is.
right?
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, guess I gotta feel this, right? Because I gotta let myself go there.
Yep.
But it's so important. We plan for everything else. We plan our outfits, we plan our hair appointments, we plan our nails, we plan this for our kids, we plan all these things. But can we plan for days that we know, hey, this is gonna be tough?
Mm.
And what can I do? And I think taking that action and having, helps you honor
Mm-hmm.
it. Helps you not only honor your mom, honor the impact that this feeling has on your life. And I just think that's so smart and so special. And I'm gonna do that instead of just
Yeah.
wallowing.
Yeah.
So
But
yeah,
wallowing's
to
okay. It's okay.
wallowing's okay.
It
Yeah.
is.
But I think it's really special that you're able to create that space and know this is going to come up for me.
Yeah. For me, before this experience, grief was just kind of like only a funeral service. That's the way that it was boxed in for me, because
Right?
I never had it,
Right?
so close. But I'm learning
Mm-hmm.
how, dates and times and seasons and all of that, it's totally different than just a funeral service. So
Right?
I think about also people that are more mature than I and have gone through grief so many times, and
Mm-hmm.
the pain that they carry, that sometimes you just don't even recognize it. You don't even recognize what your triggers might be, to where
Mm-hmm.
you think about certain moments. Like, I was driving a couple months ago past the cancer center where my mom was going, and I hadn't gone that way since.
Mm.
And I was like, oh, this feels like that old routine coming
Right?
into this present moment, and how that feeling, I let it come. I let
Yeah.
it come, and for
Yeah.
so those of you that are listening, I know that we're kind of, having our own conversation here, but what I want you to take away from that is, because for women, we're so busy, you may have the kids in the car and you're having that moment, or your spouse is in the car and you're having that moment. It seems like I can't say anything. Let me just hold it together. Let me hold it together. I want to encourage you to open your mouth and say to those that may be around you, oh, this moment is reminding me of fill in the
Yeah.
blank, that person or that moment. And I am feeling tears. I am
Yeah.
feeling whatever. And I say to do that because, one, you have to help the people around you learn how to nurture your vulnerability, because sometimes their vulnerability will be different than yours. And when
Yeah.
you're able to verbalize it, not saying give this whole long speech of how they should do what, blah, 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 but if they're able to recognize, oh, that's a moment for her, I didn't recognize that was a moment for her, then they can in turn be prepared for the next time. And it helps the people around them, for them to be okay with their own emotions. If you're a
Right.
mother, you're teaching
Right.
your
I
kids.
know. I know. I know. And it's like, why do we feel that sadness is a bad thing? Because we can get excited about something,
Oh,
right? Or we
yes.
can get anxious. I feel like we give more grace for people being anxious than people being sad. And yeah, it's like it's the so I'll just tell a quick story to kind of affirm this. So, as I mentioned, my kids are my stepkids. They never met my dad because it was before Chris and I, my dad passed like a month after Chris and I got married. It was COVID. It was weird. Okay. So, about 6 months after, I was talking to the kids and Chris, and I said, hey, I want to go to South Carolina. I want to go home. And I want to go to my dad. I'm not going to get teary here. Like, I want to go to the cemetery, and I'd, I'd really like for you guys to go with me. Don't feel like you have to. And at this time, the kids are like, I don't know, it's 6 and 10 or something, like they're little. And I was like, I really would like for you guys to go with me, but if you feel uncomfortable, like that's no worries. I just want to tell you that this is something I would really like for us to go as a family. And those little two in the back seat were like, Rachel, of course we want to go with you.
Oh, man. Wow.
And so it's just like, if
Wow.
you don't tell your kids, if I had continued to tell the story to myself, or if you, as you're listening, think like, I want to talk to my family about this, but I don't want them to feel, oh, now they have to do all this extra to support me. Think of the way it is like if you have a friend coming to you going through a hard time, you're just listening for them and supporting. them and hearing what they need. And I
Oh
think
yeah.
sometimes we make up stories about what our family's going to do and how they're going to react, and we don't even give them the opportunity.
That is so true.
So just spot on. Yes, communication. It's talking about what you're experiencing. That's how we create the family strength,
Oh yeah.
the yeah. So
Oh yeah. Wow. Wow. That is so beautiful for them to even, it's like, of course, we
they're
want to
in
be
just their little
there.
voices. They're like, of
Yeah,
course, Rachel. I'm like, oh.
I know.
So, but it
Yeah.
was, and then it was such this special moment, right? Where
Oh
we went
yeah.
out there, and anyway, I won't get into it, but it was just like it was a whole special thing. And your family, your friends, your circle, right? Like
Hmm.
if we hold this shame in, or we think we're overreacting, or we think, oh, I don't want to be dramatic, or I don't want to, like, just stop that and just talk
Yeah.
about how you feel. So
100%. 100%. You know,
yeah.
this episode's coming out right before Mother's Day. And what
Mm.
I'm thinking about while you were sharing that moment, I often reflected on, you know, since my mom passed, I could think about times where she would be like, when I'm gone, don't come out there. I'm not there, you know,
Yeah.
don't do that, you know, that kind of thing. And in my mind, like right after she passed, I'm like, I'm not going. You know, I'm not, because she said not to go, so I'm not going.
Right.
But then I
Yeah.
realized,
Yeah.
girl, you are foolish. That doesn't make any sense.
Like,
Like, you will go when you feel like you need to
that's
go.
great.
You'll have a good
Yeah.
cry when you need to go. But then
Yeah.
I remember as a young girl, because my grandmother passed when I was super young. And I
Mm.
remember like Easter, I believe was my grandmother's birthday, Mother's Day. My mom would go like super early in the morning. The
Mm.
night before, she'll go get flowers. And then I remember asking her, you know, what are the flowers for? I'm going to go out there and see your grandmother. But we didn't go with her. She went by herself. And I was just kind of like thinking now, I'm like, man, my mom, I didn't see her vulnerability. I can remember as a child, I saw my mom being vulnerable in church when she was praying and worshiping,
Mm-hmm.
and when she would be at home praying. But
Mm-hmm.
then the only other time I saw her being vulnerable is when she got her diagnosis. Like, that
Mm.
was my only time I saw her womanhood. And I think
Yeah.
about, as we're sitting in this place of Mother's Day, moms, I want to encourage you. I'm not saying, you know, throw up on your kids emotionally, but what I am saying is give them permission by them seeing your humanity. Let them, they know that you can make it happen. They ask for it. You don't know how it's going to happen, but the moment they request it, you go straight into mode of let me get it done. You know, you show up that
Right.
way. And then even for the women that desire to be a mother, but you haven't experienced that yet, Mother's Day can be a taxing experience for you. I want
Oh.
you to lean in and,
Mm-hmm.
and and honor yourself for that desire, and to recognize that you are still fully woman, even though you
Yes.
haven't experienced the birthing quality of being a mom. Like, that experience, for I got a special spot for those that are experiencing that journey. But to acknowledge your full emotions is to give your heart the exposure and validation that it needs. It's amazing how the Lord created us. It really is. It really is an experience. Oh, I just love this interview. Okay, really quick. So I know that the conversation is just like this safe space that you guys are experiencing, and we talked about how faith therapy, we are understanding what women really need when it comes to their faith and mental health. And the one area that we've recognized is having a safe space. So if you're listening to this episode and you're like, you know what, I just need my corner, I just need my tribe that understands my faith, that understands my emotional and mental health needs, faith therapy, we're here for you. We got you. And if you are wanting to join our community, head over to myfaiththerapy.com, click on Stay Connected, submit your email. We have so much that we're doing for this month. we're this, this month is actually Mental Health Awareness Month, right? And we launched an initiative called Mental Wellness in Bloom. So we are equipping you, especially in a time where there's bloom, to really have tools and resources to support your mental health. You got our podcast. We have our Wise Counsel group, which is that intimate environment for you to be in a room with like-minded women. It's such a cool experience. And then, of course, we have our preferred counselor. So if you're looking for that one-on-one time and investment into therapy, we can help you navigate the process. There's so many other things that we're doing. We're traveling this summer, so we're coming to a city near you. So be sure that you head over to myfaiththerapy.com. If you actually go to myfaiththerapy.com/bloom, you can hear about that initiative. But we're your safe space. We're your corner. All the things, right? So let's get back into this conversation. It's so good.
It's just so hugely important. And I'm not trying to make it so like, oh, social media is bad or whatever. But we're like, in a way, we're becoming conditioned even more to only show the happy, perfect times in our life. That's just simply not the way we were designed. That's not what faith is. That's not like, if we didn't mess up, how would we get grace, right? Or if we were never soft, how would we feel nurtured? Or if we were, and it's so, I'm with you, not to be too, go off subject, but I have had my own challenges with fertility and kind of got into the stepmom role and say like, okay, well, this is my space, right? But it's these days that it's being crammed down your throat. It's okay to have real emotions about it and let yourself feel it and be. So yeah, we don't have to have this mask. It doesn't have to be this beautiful, perfect, I've got it all figured out. That's never what it is. People relate to the pain. We relate to the pain.
Yes.
And then we do our best. But life is not about having this, I can do it all. And I don't know. It's exhausting.
And it's not true. It's not realistic.
It is not true. Yeah.
It's not.
Not true.
I want you to share, those 3 nuggets that you gave the ladies about when you discover these weeds, right? You're listening to this podcast and clearly we are down the emotional train. We're feeling the feels, honey, right?
Yes.
But we're in it with you. So I want you to give them 3 takeaways that you shared at the brunch about, you're recognizing these weeds, but now what? What do you do?
So how do we apply it to our life, right? We acknowledge there's these things. For me, and I started reflecting on this, in preparation for the brunch, and I picked the top 3 most impactful things that I've done. And this is all to create a space of boundaries and peace and really an openness and a vulnerability to continue to grow, right? So I'm not saying these are the top 3 things and now I figured it all out. So, right? Number 1, I started to invest in myself. I started to spend money on myself. And I started that with therapy. And this is just a tidbit, and I know every position is different, but there's a lot more awareness in the workplace now surrounding mental health. I am in sales, technically, right? And at my previous company, I had negotiated into my contract the cost of my therapy. Because I said, how do you want to support me with this and give me an office and do all this? I need you to support my mental health, right? So I started making that investment. It's expensive sometimes, right? So, but making that investment led me to be able to be successful at work and at home. And so, I don't know, talk to your boss.
I like that.
The investment in therapy, right? That then led to an investment in coaching, because I'm like, hey, if I'm doing all this personally, how can I start to shape my business with a coach, right? With a person I can have this safe space with. That led to my business started growing I met with a financial advisor, and I know this is, we didn't talk about this part exactly, but like then that led to me working with a financial advisor, and I'm like, hey, where's my money going? Right. So I set up a plan for that. And now after I have this piece in place, now I'm spending money going on a trip to a seminar or going to a one-on-one retreat or going to, you know what I mean? And
Yes.
now 6 years in, and I've built my team, I've built an incredible, so grateful for the way my business is coming together. I now take Fridays off and I do one thing for myself. I'll go get a massage, I'll go to the beach, I'll go to whatever. So I'm just saying, it's not, hey, I went to counseling and then 6 months later, I got it all figured out. But when you invest in yourself, it has all these trickle down
Yeah.
effects, right?
Yeah.
Number two, I learned to quiet the noise.
Mm.
When you're feeling overwhelmed, listen to what's around you. Is the TV going in the background? Or is the radio just going? Are you, when you want a little break, are you scrolling on your phone and it's just people going blah, 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 and then an ad, and then like quiet. It's okay to be quiet. I especially find this helpful in my car, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mostly listen to meditation music in my car. I shared that at the brunch, so don't think that I'm a psycho, but
You're
sometimes I
not.
just do nothing.
Yeah.
I just listen to nothing. I'll even at my house sometimes, don't tell Chris and the kids, but I'll put on my like Beats headphones and I won't even have anything playing. I'm just blocking out the noise, right? So we are in a life of busyness and overwhelm. So to allow yourself to be quiet is hugely
Mm-hmm.
impactful, or it has been for me. And the third thing is that I weeded out the people that were in my circle. When I was going through that hard time, a part of the betrayal that I was dealing with was my friends, because this thing was going on in my life in a relationship, and my friends at the time knew it. And it all came out after the fact, right? But what it allowed me to do was really look at, as I'm starting to connect to myself and almost like come back to myself, I go, hold on, why have I allowed these people in my life? And why are they the closest people to? Do I admire them? Do they admire me? Do they respect me? And so take a look at who's in your circle. Because again, now, like Marilyn, I count you as a person in my circle, right? Like we've
Yeah.
never had some, like it is always a positive conversation. It is always a,
Yes.
hey, I hear you, right?
Yeah.
Whether it's having a drink or whether it's having a coffee or whether it's doing this.
Yeah.
So I've seen, by making those choices, I've seen my circle grow to people that I'm so impressed to know. I look at my circle, I'm like, yo, I'm just some chick from Swansea, South Carolina. And like, it's happening because I made an intentional choice. I'm just not going to be, I'm not for everybody. I'm not going to be friends with everybody. So just take a look at the people that you're letting be closest to you.
Mm-hmm.
So as
Mm-hmm.
I say, don't get overwhelmed and you don't have to do all the things, but those are the three things that have led me to be in a place where we can have this conversation.
Yeah. Yeah. That's so good, Rachel, because it's there is an investment piece when you think about prioritizing yourself. It could be an investment of time. It could be an investment of, actually monetarily. But for
Mm-hmm.
women, we just know how to do it for everyone else, but we're the last on the list. Like it's like, it's not really
Yep.
worth it, when it's quite the contrary. And you've just laid out for women to recognize the ways that it can be added to their life. And I love the fact that you negotiated and talk about, advocating for yourself. Like, listen, thank you
Right.
for the professional development, but for me to thrive in my career, this is what I need. And for them to honor it. Like, that's just,
Right.
that's incredible. I really like that. That's awesome. So ladies, take that tip for sure, for sure.
For
And then
real. Yeah.
And then all the
They
other
they should want to support you besides just giving like a free online yoga class, from your company.
Exactly.
So,
Exactly. Rachel, I appreciate you so much. And to share with the ladies that are listening, and guys, I know that y'all be ear hustling too, on our
all
conversation about
of
what does
it.
it mean to be emotionally well and how to cultivate a life of full bloom and to recognize the weeds in your life. And before we get out of here, is there anything else you would like to share? How can people connect with you when they're ready to purchase
Yeah.
that dream home or refinance? Or you guys, clearly you can see Rachel is a true gem. So I highly recommend you all to reach out to her, even if you just have questions about the house buying process and how to prepare for it, or you're like, you know what, I'm trying to get into investing. She is the one to
Right.
reach out to. So how can people connect with
Well,
you?
thank you. So I'm on Instagram. It's kind of the one that I'm building up the most, and Facebook, of course. But it's just my full name, Rachel Saylor Brown. And then on Instagram, it's Rachel Saylor Brown LG for Lending Group. So you can always reach out to me there. I If you've thought about buying a home, right? It is possible. We
Yes.
can make a plan. It doesn't have to be right now. It doesn't have to be perfect. And the way that I built my business is based on kindness and respect. And
Yes.
so no matter what, when you're coming to me and you're saying, "Hey Rachel, what do you think about this?" or "This is what I'm hoping to do in a year, 2 years, a month," whatever it is, that is something that I take. It's what a gift and what a blessing that you would trust me with that. And I will tell you, home ownership, and Marilyn, I know you've seen it for yourself with the equity that you build.
Oh
It
yeah.
is the easiest way to create generational wealth, to build your own wealth, to build other opportunities.
Mm-hmm.
Don't just My advice is just don't even listen to like whatever's in the news about
Yeah.
buying a home, because what's important are your goals, where you want to be, what's important to your family. We can always figure out a way. So yeah.
Yes. Talk about quieting the noise. Put it on when that news comes in and then just go see Rachel so you can get your plan for your
Please.
future and not take into considerations of others. I appreciate you. One last thing, I
Thank you
ask
so
all my
much.
guests to pray us out and then we'll be done.
Okay. Uh, Here we go. Father, I thank you so much for this time today. I thank you for the impact and the words that you've allowed to come through me and Marilyn, and that you've allowed us to share and create a safe and open space. May we always keep you at the top of our minds and the top of our hearts, and just lead us and guide us through this life. It's in your name we pray. Amen.
Amen. All right. Thank you, Rachel. I love you
Thank
and thank you for being on the
you. I love you.
podcast.
Thank you.